Hello and welcome to How to Draw with Disney Animation. My name is Kuperschmidt. I've been working as an animator for Disney since 1989, all the way till now. I was also a lead animator on Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. So today I was going to show you how I approach drawing Stitch. So let's learn how to draw Stitch. So I'm going to use two pencils. One of them is going to be lighter, which I'm going to do the underdrawing. And the other one is a black pencil, which I'm going to use the final line with. For the lighter pencil, I prefer Color-Ace Tuscan Red. It's just soft enough and light enough to give me what I need. But you can really use any other pencil that you want. It'll do the job. Now, for those of you who've seen these videos, you probably noticed that we like to draw starting with simple shapes. But I also like to do what we call an action line, which helps me with an overall pose of the character. So, the first thing I'm going to do is sketch Stitch's overall head outline. And unlike the sphere, his head is actually kind of like a large hunk of bread. Then I proceed to drawing the body, which looks like a flour sack, a filled flour sack, and rough in the basic position of his legs and his arms. This is what I call his sneak pose, because he looks pretty sneaky in this. These lines, we call them center lines. They help us establish which way the character's head is turned. We usually don't like drawing things too central because they make the character look flat. The center line allows me to find exactly where his nose should be and his eyes. He's got a very large nose. It kind of dominates the center of his face, and his eyes are on a slight angle. Again, this helps with dimension on the character. The mouth comes next. It's very wide. It goes all the way to the end, and he's got a rather thin, although still substantial, bottom lip. And then for his ears, I use something similar to what the artist did on Bambi. If you look at Bambi's ears, he's kind of got this ball of muscle, and then on top of that, a leaf-shaped form that when you draw it, you can see how the ear looks. So this is sort of similar to what Stitch has, except Stitch's ears is quite a bit larger, and they're a little bit notched. One of them has a notch on top, and the other one has the one at the bottom. His eyes are very special because he's probably one of the very few Disney characters that doesn't have pupils. He's got just solid black eyes, which I like to fill out and then introduce just a hint of highlight. There's a couple of wrinkles just above his nose, and his eyebrows and his wrinkle under the eye, they all kind of echo the same position as the eye themselves, just larger. So the eye is sort of just nestled in this shape here on one side and on the other. He's got quite a lot of teeth, almost like a shark. And he has no sharp corners. Everything on stage is sort of rounded. I call them rounded corners, kind of looking like that. So the body has just a bit of a break here, which suggests an ample tummy. Everything about him is sort of stout and generous in terms of mass. And another center line helps me figure out which way his body's turned and how to do the color break on his body between darker shade on top and the lighter color on his tummy. His arms are very robust, especially his lower arms. They kind of look like bread rolls. And he doesn't have much of a wrist. I just sort of take his little knobby fingers and stick them in there. And then from them come these very nasty looking, but not, again, not sharp claws. So it's usually a good idea to vary the direction of his fingers so they have this kind of spread out look that suggests anticipation. And for the legs, as a rule, is a flat bottom, but I don't like making the legs look the same because it gives him a lot more dimension. One of the interesting things about drawing his feet is they sort of look like coasters, right? So it's kind of like a shape like that down here, to which again I add a thick rounded set of toes. His toe, the claws on his toes are a bit more solid and a bit more stubby than the ones on his hands. They kind of look like that, like kernels of corn. As you notice, I use a lot of bread in my drawing, but it's just trying to figure out a simple shape. It usually helps me to visualize what kind of shape it is. So this process of sketching very rough and very loose with a soft, lighter pencil is kind of a trick of getting a drawing done. And when I'm ready to switch, I simply switch the pencils and I proceed with a dark line. But as you may have noticed, what we do is essentially use very simple shapes and very light, quick drawing in order to do our drawings quickly and in order to have control over the drawing. Learning how to draw with simple shapes is really the key to being able to draw properly, and that really covers almost any kind of drawing. So now that I'm ready to tie him down, so to speak, I'm going to use a dark pencil and use a darker line to basically start outlining him in the final. Now that I have the underdrawing, I have confidence, and as I draw, I can correct any mistakes that I see. So, Stitch, even though he looks cuddly and very thick, almost like a plush toy, is actually a very, very heavy character. One of the directors on the film described him to me as a creature that has a weight of a fire hydrant. So he's very heavy and very solid, right? Even though he looks like a plush toy, don't forget that he's made up of titanium cartilage, which makes him an extremely dense and extremely heavy character. So human beings, to him, being 70% water, look rather insubstantial. Now, these dark eyes is one of his key characteristics. As you know, you can usually tell characters' expression through the eyes, being the windows of the soul. With Stitch, one of his key characteristics is that he's unpredictable. So, having his eyes so dark, it's always difficult to read his expression and makes him an unpredictable character. One of the great things about having an animation disc is that if I have trouble drawing a particular line from a certain angle, I can always turn the disc and get that line down in a more comfortable position. So it's got these nice, generous S-curve shaped lines in his ears, and you can obviously place his ears down. I usually save it for more, say, sad or fearful position, because on animals, the ears are about as expressive as their eyes. So if the ears point forward, it makes him look more aggressive, and also like he's zooming in or aiming himself at something. It's a very alert pose. So most of our work, most of the work that I had done at Disney were done through this technique, which is drawing light first using simple shapes, and then going over with a darker pencil. It's a great technique, especially if you have to do a lot of drawing very quickly. And if you practice this, you can probably get it down. I mean, you have to remember, drawing, there's nothing mysterious about it. Obviously, it helps if you have a gift for it, and especially if you have an affinity for it. But like any other skill, it's a matter of practice. The more you do it, the better you will become at it. And I have heard folks say before, well, you know, there's nothing artistic about me, I'm not an artist. But you have to remember, as kids, we all drew and painted. We all did arts. It's just some of us stopped doing it and some of us haven't. It all depends on what you're interested in. But because of that, all of us have an ability to do art. It's just, again, it's a question of practice. It's art. Drawing is a skill like any other. The more you do it, the better you become. So right here, basically, that's about how quickly or how easily you can draw Stitch and sketch him. So I was going to take an opportunity to very quickly show you how to draw Alien Stitch, which is the one that has 4 arms, 2 legs, the spines, and it's a bit more careful kind of drawing because of the number of elements increased in the drawing. You have to be very careful with your composition so the drawing doesn't get cluttered. I'm going to pick an easy pose so you can see how his arms work in it. So, and this is just a quick and rough sketch, so it's not going to be finished, but the idea is that he's got two more arms coming out underneath the first set, right? And in addition to that, on his back, he has a spine. So if you saw Stitch from the back, for example, let's say this is his back, the spines kind of look this way. The longest one is the middle, the next long is the one underneath it, and the shortest one is the one that's closest to his head. And there, if this is his tummy from the back, the spines are actually where his torso would be here, you know, and then his arms would come over like that. Obviously, when he's facing you in this position, the spines are rather harder to read, so I usually tuck them down so they don't clutter the silhouette of the rest of the character, right? And again, the challenge is to find the open space for all of his parts, so when you look at the pose, right, you have a lot of what we call negative space, which helps you to read the character expression, right? Negative space is extremely important in animation drawing, and because it makes it very readable. And as far as his antennae go, which is another sign of alien stitches, they come out just behind his brows. So, and I have these tiny little knobs at the end. They kind of look like heads of mushrooms. If you were to draw them large, they would look sort of like that. And usually, as a rule book, his antennae have this nice little S-curve to them, which makes them look very organic. So as you can see, if I'm drawing a character that has all these elements, I always try to figure out a way to position his elements in such a way that they're all readable and can be seen by the audience. His tail, by the way, is just a big thick knob. It's not fluffy, it's very dense like the rest of him. And he does have these nasty looking but not sharp teeth, a tongue. And again, everything I do, I use quick, simple shapes to get a character down very quickly. Another advantage of that is that if I mess up, I didn't spend too much time on my drawing. I can throw it out and start anew. So that's basically all there is to drawing Stitch. The rest is just a matter of practice. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how I approach drawing Stitch. Please remember, when you draw anything, is not to get worried about failing. I fail all the time. You can always throw it away. You can always start anew. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.